welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, the crazy mother-daughter travel team and publishers of the digital interactive Big Blend magazines. You can see both magazines if you go to bigblendmagazines.com. And you just heard the beautiful song, Where the Rain Falls. It's a title track from the new EP by international violinist and singer-songwriter Kimia Penton, and it follows her successful release of Lessons from Life and Love. And we're so happy to have Kimia join us on Big Blend Radio today. She's calling in from Dallas. But everyone, go to her website, kimia-penton-music.com, and that's Kimia, P as in Penton, so kimia-penton-music.com. Kimia, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing very well, thank you.
That is such a beautiful, beautiful
song.
Love it. It's so calming, refreshing, and you just, when you think about Where the Rain Falls, there's this cleansing that comes with rain. When you've gone through something, and listening to your EP, it feels like you're going through. It's almost like a breakup or like some kind of let's say challenge in life. And then, you go down and then you come up and then it's like, okay, you're rebuilding. And at the end of the album, you're like, okay, I can get back on the horse and ride again. You know what I mean? I say that because you're in Dallas and I know there's horses out there.
Yes, and I'm quite fond of horse riding, actually. Yes, and you're exactly spot on. It was just, this is a very personal album, just about journeying through life's ups and downs, being vulnerable and open, picking up the pieces, and then saying, yes, I get another shot at this. There's a new day. Hey, let's keep going and celebrating and being thankful for what we do have.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I love that because it's so true.
Absolutely.
And I think that's interesting you say that because when I was listening at the beginning, I thought, okay, so and so broke up. No, there's a different challenge. There's a different. It's like a collection of what life is, right? And I think there's something. I love that Where the Rain Falls is your title track because I hear so many different countries in there.
I know.
The music.
I knew
for sure. I knew you'd say that, Nancy.
The guitar starts ding, ding,
I know.
Ding. I'm like, that's East
but
African.
it's like Celtic.
Yeah.
It's African. There's so many different things in there. Yet it's such a simple, beautiful song, and yet has that rhythm of rain, where just those simple things in life, where rain sometimes we're lucky when we get it, right? And yet there's those moments where over here in the desert, we're like, yay, when we get the rain. So when you get that, it's just this magical moment where you're just really thankful for those kind of things, and it puts you back in perspective of whatever's going on in your life, good or bad. I love that you said that.
And thank you. It's so kind of you to put it that way and to say that. And what an amazing analysis. And I could listen to you talk all night.
I love this because I know you've got a background too of being a psychologist, and I always go, someone's going to examine our brains if they come on our show. That's a scary thing. It's like, hey, we're the crazy mother-daughter team, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that.
No. No, I think we're very much on the same page. So if that's crazy, I'm in that same crazy club. So we're all good.
I love that. Tell us, let's go back into your beginning of your career as a musician because you play the violin, you're a singer, you write the music. Where did this start for you? Is this a childhood thing? Because, there's just such a, you know how to get into people's souls immediately. And I love that when a musician does that. Yeah, when I heard your music,
I really appreciate
it was like immediate.
That.
Yeah, the immediate connection is always, it's important, and I think that's important nowadays too for people to listen to new music is being able to connect with someone immediately. There's that spark, and there's that, ooh, this is really interesting, draws you into a story. But is that something that, did you play music as a child, and where were you as a child? I know you've traveled a lot.
I did. Thank you. Yeah, so I was born in Iran, and then my parents moved to England when I was 3. And I was a very introverted, reserved, really observant, very sensitive kid. And it was my first grade teacher who actually noticed and pulled me aside, and still one of my favorite people and people who impacted my life the most. So I'm very grateful for people who are good educators and take care of our kids that way. But he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, do you realize you have the soul of a musician?" And I said, "Really? Because Mommy and Daddy told me I have to be a doctor." And he said, "There you are, let me show you." So he took me to the music room and he played some melodies and he said, "Can you sing that?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Can you play that?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Do you understand it? It doesn't come that way for everyone." I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "So I want you in the music program, and I'm going to give you a violin, and you're going to be educated with the rest of your studies." And he handed me the violin, and I wanted to play the flute, but I was very asthmatic as a child, and I couldn't, and he gave me the violin, and that has been my lifeline. My first grade teacher who had the insight and cared enough to pull me aside, and I spent night after night working with that violin, just processing my own feelings and complexities in life and cross-cultural challenges of being in Europe, but, you know, in a traditional Middle Eastern home and being the oldest daughter and the expectations and who am I and just trying to navigate life. So I think maybe one of the reasons my music comes across as very personal, it has been my personal lifeline. So the more honest I'm able to be, it's healing for me. And the more vulnerable I am, the more real it is, and the more other people can relate also.
Yes, I think that's the thing, is that vulnerability connects with people because everyone has some similar story. It's going to be different, but it's going to be that same bloodline or lifeline, I should say, that same heartbeat. You know, there's this, we're connected, right? And it's we all go through that transition. It's just going to be a different story, but that same feeling. That's what I'm getting to.
Right.
You know?
We definitely have more in common than we don't. Yep.
I totally believe that, and the more you travel, the more you find that out, and that idea of peace in the world is actually tangible when you travel. But when you don't travel, I think a lot of people have a hard time crossing boundaries and looking at different cultures because it's all strange. But when you travel, you are open to it, and then you find those. And you know, your music to me was, first of all, the first thing I felt was safe. It's safe.
It felt good.
It's safe. You know, but I feel safe in the forest. I feel safe in the rain. You know, and I feel safe in certain places. And I went right there, man. I'm in the forest in the rain.
I know she's going to go meditate with a tree now.
I know.
So there you go.
Hey, why not? We all need to do that a little bit more often.
Trees have wisdom.
They do.
For many years, man. They could, if they could talk, which they do, but people don't listen. That sounds weird, but they have wisdom.
They do.
Yeah, that's my belief anyway.
When you were in England, you know, at such a young age, I got there when I was 8, and you know, it was in the mid 80s and early 80s. We'd just come out of Kenya and lived out in the bush.
Wow.
And lived out with different tribes and different cultures.
Oh wow!
All kinds of culture. Every I think, you know, it's like I would say we lived with every culture. We didn't, but we did live with multiple cultures. And coming out and getting to England was this complete shock system to me as a young girl, because it was the punk era, and people were walking around with these big piercings and spiked hair, and I was looking and wondering what African tribe they were. We got on the train, and the conductor was an African man or a black gentleman, and I asked him what tribe he was, so I knew how to address him, and he didn't find that very amusing, but I was being the most polite young child. And then I turned into a little snotty brat later. But what happened later, I was like, "Mommy," you know.
Didn't take long.
I know. But did you have that feeling? I mean, I know 3 is very young to get into, you know, going from Iran to London. I mean, that's got to be quite a change of culture, you know, to go from there to there.
Yes, I think it was more so. A change for my parents, who were in their 30s at that time, and then me trying to navigate being respectful and honoring my parents and having the whole third culture kid thing going of growing up in a different culture than your parents. Having those roots in the home and loving those things, the food, the music. You know, I got to go to Persian school on the weekends too, so I'm fluent in Farsi, so the community was very vibrant. But then also going to regular school and growing up with kind of Western views and ideals. So there are a lot of cultural paradigms you have to deal with and reconcile because Eastern cultures are very collectivist, and it's about the family unit. Western cultures respect more kind of an individualized type of, you know, who do I want to be versus am I part of the group? So just very early on ideas of identity and where do I fit and who really am I? And then also a kind of a tremendous sense of guilt of knowing that I had a lot more opportunities and freedoms living in Europe than maybe many of my relatives and cousins didn't have being back home. So that also grew in me a sense of, okay, so I have a lot more responsibility and I need to be a voice. So that there was a lot of stress too, and kind of understanding how do I get to do all these things and why don't they, you know? So it was just a lot of cultural dynamics, again, being the firstborn too in that home. But I, looking back now, is extremely lucky to grow up with both cultures and get to see the best of both worlds.
I think that's exactly it. I mean, I think for me too, I mean, I never felt really American, but I was always a new kid on the block, and like, you're the American, you're an immigrant. I was always the immigrant. That was my name. Everywhere I went, you're the immigrant, you're the immigrant. And then I look at what's happening in America now, and I'm like, wow, this is some crazy stuff going on. I don't want to get into all that, but it's like at the same time, it's like, you know, we are all connected, and there's some balancing and understanding that needs to happen. Do you feel like music plays that role of you know, where people, this is just saying what you were talking about, like the collective family, that community versus the individualism, right? That America does do. Like, you can be all you can be. Here's this and that, which both sides are right. Do you think that sometimes music can bring both of those sides together?
So absolutely, and I'm so glad you touched on this because I really got the songwriting bug when I was 13, and we were in a house full of family, and I wrote and performed my first song, which was a Father's Day song to honor my father. And just seeing the reaction and the love and the joy in that room, I was able to see that music really does bring people together. Yeah. And the emotional release and the connectivity, it touches people in a way that many other things can't. So from that day on, it's like my goal was to bring kind of positive feelings and a sense of togetherness and community through music.
I love it.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's the thing. We, you know, I know before we went on air here that we were talking about Nancy and I doing our tour that we travel. You know, we go off and travel for 3 to 5 years, and this next round could be, I don't know, till they say, like, you can't drive anymore. You know, it could happen. You never know. But it's called the Love Your Parks Tour, and our thing is to go to parks and bridge this thing between community and parks and the importance of that. And I was talking to a friend who is a park ranger, and she knows every park, you know, around the world here. And I was talking to her about this community thing, and she said to me, she's like, Lisa, there's community that's local, but there's community that is all kinds of communities. It could be musical, it could be professional, it could be family. Community is such a big word and an important word, and it can go broad, it can go close. And that's what I think is interesting with what you're saying about community. We can get together in a community of music, and everything we don't agree on can just fall away. The same thing as you can go to a park and everybody's enjoying a park that day. You can look around. None of us are trashing each other on Facebook. We're just enjoying that moment in the park, right? It's the same thing in music. You could go to watch a performance, and in that moment, people who disagree on everything and agree on everything. We're all in that room, right? And at that moment, we're all in that same energy of connectivity, and that is a community right at that time. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. I completely agree. Yep.
Man, I'm tripping out here a little bit here. This is good
stuff. That's amazing. Yeah, well, I mean, I completely agree, because a lot of challenges we face today are due to, isolation and loneliness and losing those relational skills, not having enough time to be out in nature, not knowing how to be vulnerable and relate, and people not having enough community just because of the pace of life. So we're connected to a lot more people, but we don't really go deep enough with people.
Yeah. Well, we go too fast. I mean, just slow down a bit. And I'm like, I'm not sure what we're rushing to. What's the rush about everything?
Apparently it's money.
Well, I don't know, because that's few and far between for most people. Money is, you can't take it with you, so at the end of the day, so what? But, I mean, what is our big rush? I'm still trying to figure that out.
You can't rush music. How about that?
I mean, we have deadlines for our magazines and stuff, but at the end of the day, I feel like, especially in this country compared to other countries that we've lived in, that this is kind of crazy. It's like it's like, dude, slow down, think a bit.
Well, and you don't realize, like when I started as an adult traveling overseas and got to go back to the Middle East as an adult, which was very emotional and kind of coming full circle, but going to places like Indonesia or going to Jordan and waiting on like public transport, I did not realize how stressed out and fast-paced my life was, that I was freaking out that the driver was 5 minutes late. How ridiculous, because we get so conditioned. We get so conditioned, and the driver just casually came 45 minutes late. Sorry, I wanted to have tea with my daughter before I started my work day. And I was all furious, but then I realized, well, that's actually really beautiful. What's the rush?
Right. I love that, because at the end of the day, like Manana time, right? We call it Manana time here on the border, and when we lived in Mexico, it's Manana time. And living in Africa, it was like you're just going to slow your pace down, and there's that thing. And I remember that, I think, was one of the hardest things for me even as a kid, going from Kenya to England and then South Africa. South Africa became very modern by the time we left. Coming back here, both of us went into immense culture shock. I mean, immense culture shock.
It was easier to leave this country and go to another country than to come back here.
Absolute shock. Like, why do we have so many things in a grocery store? Like, why?
Yeah, remember.
Why do we have to have 10 types of the same cereal? What's wrong with half of them? There's all these weird things. But what you're saying about that, the time thing, and I wonder about, like, other cultures out there that are just taking their time, and family being the unit, and I mean, I bet you they don't have as many heart attacks unless it's culinary, like the food thing, than we do in this country. I look at women have the highest rate of heart disease is women. 80%, like it's of death for women is heart disease. And I wonder how much of that comes from stress. It's like it's crazy.
Yep.
I always think about that. But you're a musician that brings music that is just beautiful and allows us to calm down and work through things. And I wanted to ask about your writing process for this EP. Is this something that you thought, I'm going to put these kind of songs together, or did they just come together and then you said, okay, I have an EP now? How did this whole process work together for this album?
So I typically write a lot, and the writing is very intentional about what I want to say, because I feel like, when you put a message out there, there's a responsibility that goes with that. And is it a message I'm going to stand by 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now? Is it going to add any value? So I try to think about themes of what am I observing observing around me that also I can relate to, that maybe could be helpful or useful for the times we're in. So I try to be very intentional about content, but then I'm very specific about who I collaborate with. Like in this particular case, I wanted to work with a very close friend, Kellen, who's a very gifted musician and lives in San Francisco. So then I feel like when you're with the right people too, like-minded, like-spirited, then the creativity flows. And then typically I write the lyrics and the music at the same time based on an idea or an inspiration. I capture the first idea, and then I go through the discipline of the rewriting after the fact, the correcting. So it's kind of feeling, what do I feel needs to be said? Because if I overanalyze, then I'm not being really true to me. And then I do the analytics at the end when it comes to the critiques and the production and the mixing and the mastering. So I try to do heart first and then actually polish it up and make sure the sound is as professional as possible at the end. Because I have to check myself, being a very analytical person. If I go in straight with strategy and analytics and worrying about the perfection, then I'm not able to flow as well. So I think part of it's knowing yourself. And, I will say out of my 9 planets, I have 3 in Virgo. And almost all of the people I choose to work with are Virgos. So I'm a safe person for Virgos.
Virgo
but I'm
sister.
not a... There we go. But I'm predominantly water. But my father and my daughter and my co-writer and my guitar player and my photographer and my stylist are all Virgos. It just happened like that. Good people.
We rock, and we're perfectionists, and we try to get over it, but we still are.
But there's, I just have to say, there's no such thing as perfection.
No, there isn't, and that's the beauty of life.
That's right.
Once you learn
it's actually the quest of life.
I know. It's fascinating. So when you write the music part, are you writing it on the violin or a different instrument?
So it depends. I mean, sometimes. Actually, a couple of songs I wrote frustrated in traffic, and I just didn't want to be frustrated, and I started singing into my phone. But, I mean, that's just the reality of life. When the inspiration comes, you just want to be in a different space and energy, stuck in traffic in Dallas. But sometimes it's at the piano. Sometimes I'm practicing something on the guitar, or I'm rehearsing, and then I get an idea. Sometimes I get a melody as I'm practicing the violin. So I'm pretty open. I try not to put restrictions on which way that it flows. I try to capture the initial idea and inspiration and then develop it more later. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I guess it's my personal therapy.
Does any of it wake you up at night or keep you up at night, like when you're writing, like where you just have that at the back of your head, like it's sitting there, like you're formulating. It's like, okay, I got to go write this down now.
So the writing process doesn't keep me up at night. It's whatever I'm experiencing that results in the song that I'm emotional about, or I'm feeling pain about, or I'm hurting, or I'm thankful. It's the emotional state that I'm trying to process and deal with and have my coping mechanisms. Because I think emotions are very powerful. They're triggers that something is going well or something isn't, or a change needs to happen, but I don't want to just stay in that emotional state and drown in that. So it's whatever I'm processing that I'm going through is the thing that might be keeping me up. And then when it's resolved, I write it, then it's resolved, and then I can get some rest. Yep. So that's kind of my complicated process.
So musically, because your music is very pure to me when I listen, there's like I said, it just flows. And I think that, again, like Where the Rain Falls, it just has that vibe of it that just, it takes you on this little journey of going through things. And I love Alive Again at the end. It's like, okay, I made it. Here I am. I'm growing now. Yes. I'm on my, I found my path. I'm going to do this, I love Stepping Stones is probably one of my most favorite. I think it's a very true life story, and I want to talk about that. But for you listening to music and traveling and living in different countries and cultures, do you listen to different ethnic music? Do you listen to music from Iran?
Oh,
do you listen?
Yes. Absolutely. I sing some in Farsi as well. So for me, I think something you picked up on is I like things at their most natural state. So authentic rhythms, drum rhythms, and acoustic instruments before they're digital. Like I flew to India one year because I wanted to find an authentic tabla player. And I found him just sitting at his school playing tabla, no shoes on, and just killing it, just playing so well. But so for me, I love learning from different cultures and the music of different cultures and their authentic instruments, whether it's a tabla or a hand drum or a sitar or the Iranian santur, and of course strings, the acoustic. I have an electric violin, but I so rarely play it. So I like a very organic, very natural, minimally produced sound, because that's soothing to me, and it's at the most kind of basic state, and I find that very beautiful and very appealing.
I agree with that. Listening to the album, that's one of the things that I thought was like, it's very real. It's just, it feels very, very natural. It just is like, this is this natural sound coming out. It's like listening to birds outside. This is how they sing. It's beautiful. It's natural. You can, string it together what they're saying, And that's the thing too. When it was interesting because we were talking about where the rain falls and the rhythm, and it's like I hear Celtic and I hear this, and then I go, well, really, Celtic rhythms and music came from the Middle East.
Exactly.
You got to go back to that. I was like, wait.
It's
it's really
ancient.
When you think about Middle Eastern music and the effects that it's had on the Western world of music. I mean, I wonder, like, really, where would we be musically without the Middle East being that spur? Like, where would we be now musically if we didn't have that?
But I really appreciate that and African rhythms and some of those kind of ancient cultures and like ancient and Asian cultures, and just very beautiful, authentic sounds, and again helps us all to connect. Yeah, really beautiful stuff. Internationally, and I briefly played with a Celtic band here in Dallas too, and they're still my very good friends. I just growing up so close to Ireland, I just found their music and their vocals and their dance just so beautiful and pure and almost haunting, just stunning. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, like if you listen to the rhythm and the drum in there, in Where the Rain Falls, you can hear that. And it does sound like a pitter-patter, yet it has that rhythm, and it does feel like it's it's really interesting because it's warm, yet there's a space. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
It's a syncopation of it.
But when you're listening and you're feeling emotionally, it's there, but it's like there's this, it makes it, that's that ancient thing where now I'm going to sound weird, that it's not just the person playing it now, it's coming through from the past. It's like other energies are coming in. Now I've tripped out a little bit.
It's that
sorry.
heartbeat. It was it's like a heartbeat that connects us all, and it was intended to sound like the human heartbeat, our pulse, but also the thunder and being at one with nature, and just drawing on all that energy to realize, hey, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. This rain that is actually coming, that was scary at first, is actually for my good.
Yeah, it allows you to grow. It's clean. It's cleaning you and getting you ready to go forward. And Alive Again, the last track, it's got like a little jazzy part, and then the end, the
I'm a big fan
part,
of jazz.
It's got like and then the end, this guitar part comes in. There's a part of it that it just is going to sound weird, but it reminds me of like a little bit of Ryan Bingham, who Texas loves, more on the Austin side, I think, in the south side of Texas. But Ryan Bingham there's this interesting thing he does guitar-wise where he goes into slide, and then there's this, I don't know, because he crosses cultural boundaries too. He just like, hey, this is how it feels. There's just this hook in there that I'm like, wow, this is so cool, because you would never expect this in that song, and it blends really well. And I can't really put my finger on how that works, but it's beautiful, and I love it because it's so positive. And that guitar part at the end, I love that guitar part. I love that.
Well, I will be sure, and thank you so much for recognizing that. That is Kellen my very dear friend, who I will point out is a Virgo, is brilliant
Yay.
that way on the guitar, and that was his guitar lick that inspired. He played that guitar lick, and that inspired the whole song and all of my lyrics and the melody.
Way. Wow.
So it was powerful, and he's just a very, very gifted person and a very dear friend, and I'm definitely going to pass on your feedback. He'd be delighted to hear that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and correlate it, but there's a sound. It's just a sound that, I'm not saying he's playing somebody else's music. I hate to say that because it's not true. It's there's this sound that I rarely hear anybody do, and it's just this cool sound. And it has to do with that rhythm of building, yet that echo of the past that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So nature's a big deal. So do you go into parks? Do you hike? Tell us about your nature experiences.
So I do. I love being outdoors, and I love animals. So horses, dogs, birds. I find it very peaceful. Anytime I'm able to get away, I like to. I very much enjoy Colorado. I spend quite a bit of time in cities right now. I'm working with some writers in New York, so I pop over there a bit. If I'm going to see family, I have to go to London. But anytime I can just drive out of the city, even here in Dallas to sit at White Rock Lake, or anytime I get to be around water, it does something. It has a centering effect. It has a calming effect. The stress melts away, and you just get back to the basics. We can create beautiful things with our architecture and man-made things, but you can never come close to nature. You can't beat that.
No, you can't.
It's interesting about your connection with water, because we tend to go walk wherever there's water. There's because the birds are going to be there, and there's going to be, I think we're all drawn to water. That's where civilization always starts, is there's water here, let's build a town, or let's live here.
Well, you started off in water.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Oh, that's right. It's the embryonic stage. Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
So when you recorded this, right, I've watched your videos, and everyone, go to kimia-penton-music.com and go to her website, because you'll see her perform. And you've got Bob Dylan's "Blowin' in the Wind," and you can also see the very first track from the album, "Not Goodbye." A lot of different videos there. Is that your recording studio that you were performing in there?
Yeah, so we do record. I've recorded almost all of my material at Crystal Clear in Dallas, and Kent Stump, who is the sound engineer there, is a very good friend, and I trust his work. And again, being a female in the scene, when you find good people that you can trust and they're safe and they do good work, you stick with them. And the people you work with become kind of like your tribe, your musical family. So I like to record the videos there too, because that's just been such a safe and lovely creative space. And again, we love the live sound. So that's the band members and the people that recorded on the album just playing live together and having that sense of community. I much prefer to do it that way than everybody just email their tracks and then I go in a sound room and throw on vocals, because it's so much about the connecting and the community and the organic experience and the communication with each other in that space instead of just the recording process.
Agree. There's something about that when I know I've talked about this on the show before, the first time I ever recorded, and I was freaked out. I was so scared, and I would never have been able to do it if it wasn't for everybody being in the same room together. If it was one of those, go in that room and someone's doing this over here, I would have been like, no, that's not natural to me. It's not I want to. To me,
the same way.
It's clinical. Way.
It doesn't feel right, and it just, I know people. Yeah, it is. It's like you're going
clinical.
to the doctor, and over here, no, I can't do that. It's weird. To me, I don't know if it comes from performing first, And for you, tell us about your performing life. Do you go and perform in Dallas? Do you tour?
I do. So I do that in seasons because I also work in the field of organizational psychology, which is people at work, and I'm very passionate about that because I feel like so much of our identity is in what we do, and it's important to be healthy with what we do. So I'm passionate about that, so I do seasons. So typically I'll spread a tour over weekends, over a release, or I'll play locally in Dallas, usually at one of my favorite venues, Opening Bell Coffee, great intimate venue where you can really get to know the audience and share stories behind the songs. But
nice.
Any upcoming shows I probably will book after the 1st of next year, and they will all be listed on the website. But we try to play venues where we can really get to know people and share stories and have very interactive experiences where people can also share and ask questions instead of just kind of performing at people. We try to kind of also invite people to be part of the community of the band.
I love that.
That's so much fun.
Yeah, to me it's an experience. When you go listen to live music, it's, I think that whole thing has changed too.
People always want to go, they always really want to know what's going on in the musician's head.
Yeah, why did you write this?
They really, they're curious about people who do the arts, whether it's painting or music or whatever. They want to know, how come you can do this? How did you do it? What were you thinking? And so I think
what were you thinking?
Yeah, what are you thinking? What made you do this?
Yeah.
Like, how come you can do this?
Yeah.
And I think when you do a venue where you can actually talk to the audience, that people, I think that's cool. I think they love that.
Yeah, there's a connectivity because a lot of people, and it inspires creativity out of people too. That's the other thing, because a lot of people, we've taught music, and there's that balance of where people are like, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. I could never do this. I could never. And everybody has some form of creativity in them. Hopefully all accountants. Anyway.
No, they do, and we need them.
But, the world doesn't move without creativity. And so having that kind of platform, that intimate setting that you're talking about, I think inspires people to go create on their own, even if it's, I'm going to make my own lamp or paint my walls differently, I think that's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And I get a lot out of the interaction as well, because it's a lot of work writing and producing and publishing all of your own music, and just to keep your own energy up. So I find that very rewarding, and it helps motivate me to keep going as well, because it's not always easy.
No, it's not.
No, it's
hard
not.
work.
And you're putting your heart on the line too. Because the way you write, you're like real, and so then it's out there, and it's like, here's my heart on a platter.
As real as I can be without scaring people off, as real as I can be without making them worry about me.
I know, hey, you're on the psychology side, not us. We need to come see you. I think, but it's such a beautiful album. I'm so glad you came on the show with us, and everybody, again, go get the album Where the Rain Falls. Again, kimia-penton-music.com. I love your name, and I'm saying it right.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes,
Kimia.
you are. You are. Yes, that's right.
I love that. And everybody, it's Kimia-P as in Penton, her last name, kimia-penton-music.com. Go there, and we're going to play Stepping Stones, and I want you to tell the story about that. But I do want to quickly give a shout-out and thank you to this segment's sponsor, which is the National Parks Arts Foundation. We love them. We have our first Friday art show with them every month. What they do is they create unique artist-in-residence programs in park units within the National Park Service and other parks, too. So artists, musicians, you could be a filmmaker, a poet, a writer. They have these amazing, amazing opportunities to go and stay in a park unit for a month and create. And you get to do an event there, and sometimes the artist collections end up in the National Park Service. I mean, this is amazing. And so I encourage everyone to go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org, sign up for their newsletter, because they get these grants and then they have these opportunities, and everyone needs to jump on them as soon as they come in, and then the opportunity goes away. So you got to get it as fast as it comes in. But some of them are like, you could be at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Trust me, I know that one part of the park is closed, but there's another part that is actually open and they have an Airbnb that you get to stay in that sleeps 6 people, so your whole family can go, and they're building a recording studio in there. Just saying, for musicians.
Hello,
Kimia.
Wow.
You want to go to Hawaii? I know.
Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah.
There's the dry tortugas out in the Florida Keys. You have to have your partner to go with you because you get to stay on a remote island by yourself for a month and see turtles and, out in the palm trees. And then there's like Chaco Canyon. You go in the ancient sites of the ancient peoples in New Mexico. I mean, there's amazing places. So at Gettysburg, they have a program just for veterans, military veterans that are artists. So anyway, I just keep talking about them because I love them. But anyway, so the website is nationalartsfoundation.org. But tell us about Stepping Stones, Kimia, because this song to me is I love it.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. This one was dedicated to my parents, and just again, there's some of those cross-cultural things that we were talking about of just the views from the Middle East of wanting you really to be an engineer or a doctor, and wanting to have a big say in your life, and then you've got this creative kid who is very introverted and wants to be a musician. That would terrify most Middle Eastern parents, and it was just me understanding with age that a lot of the decisions they made for me that maybe at the time I found very stifling and wanted to rebel against, and my views being very different than theirs about life in general, but understanding and respecting and appreciating them for always doing the absolute best they could and having my greatest good in mind and loving me with all that they had. And we just look at life with a different lens. But there's love and there's respect and there's admiration, and I wouldn't be who I am today if it were not for them. So even though my life path is very different, they are the heartbeat. They lay down those stepping stones for me to be able to grow, and I just wanted to honor them and thank them and kind of come full circle in that acceptance and bring healing where there had been tension as I was growing up, and just love them and publicly love them.
Oh, wow. That's just so special. Like, it really is. And I think that's something that it takes time in life to come to that part, I know. Nancy's looking at me. She's looking at me right now.
Well, when
it's a process.
When you're a parent, you become very practical, and you become very you safeguard your children, your child.
Yes.
And you're in a mode. You're not really in the mode of, oh, my child wants to be creative. You're in the mode of, well, this could harm, so we're going to say no. And it is extremely difficult to say, this could harm, but I'm going to let you do it anyway.
Especially moving countries.
Because, I'm sure that your parents also have some creative genes in them.
Yes.
And it's a conflict no matter what. When you're a parent, there's a conflict of who you are, but then now you're like, okay, when I was a kid I made this mistake, and I want my child to make that mistake. So you become this person that you're safeguarding, and you kind of lose sight of, well, am I stifling my creativity in my child versus the keeping my child safe?
Yes, survival.
Or you are always going to go to keeping my child safe first. And that's what I have to say about being a parent.
Yes, because you're motivated by love. Because you're motivated by love for your child.
Yeah, and as a
that's
child,
coming
you
from.
don't get that. You don't really get that. You get it, but you don't want to because you're in that mode of, I'm going to break the rules now, and I don't want to see that. Yet I kind of know deep down. Yeah, it's fascinating, but I think it's really different when you're moving countries, when there's those kind of things, whereas, and everybody has a different scenario, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a different story, and there's that commonality of, again, going to where the rain falls, and the whole album, everybody has a different story, but it's the same story, right? And
exactly.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you so much. This is just such a joy having you on the show. But we're going to play.
Thank you.
Here it is. We'll see you when we get to Dallas if you're still there. Unless you've traveled.
Great.
somewhere.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here it is, everybody. Stepping Stones. Again, go get the album now, Where the Rain Falls. You can go to kimia-penton-music.com. Thanks, everyone. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.
My first steps were a celebration, Mom and Dad watching me grow. With every orbit of the sun, there's much more I got to know. As the seasons changed and I was fully grown, I was more than made by the love they sow. Mom and Dad's story didn't always make sense. They came from a different time with different pains. But the courage that I stand on is the example that they gave. My first stepping stones were the lives they led. 2 degrees later, moved out to the city on my own, working at the corner office on the 21st floor, thinking how far I come and where I could go, taking in the whole world, but I'm missing home. Travel didn't always make sense. I wish for a different time, a better place. If I was building bridges, if I built a fence, Mom and Dad's wisdom was my one